The Battle of Gettysburg, a cinematic tale. Act 1. The march to destiny the summer of 1863 was stifling, both in heat and tension. The Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, led by the audacious General Robert E. Lee, was riding high on their recent victory at Chancellorsville. Lee, emboldened and seeking to capitalize on the South's momentum, set his sights northward, into the Union heartland of Pennsylvania. It was a daring gamble, aimed at breaking the North's resolve and perhaps securing international recognition for the Confederacy. Lee's army, a formidable force of over 71,000 men, advanced with disciplined precision. Spirits soared among the Confederate ranks, while in the North, uncertainty and fear crept into the public's consciousness. The Union forces, reeling from setbacks, were now under the command of General George G. Meade, hastily appointed after General Joseph Hooker's resignation. Meade inherited a daunting task: to stop Lee's invasion and defend the Union's very existence. Meanwhile, Lee's trusted cavalry leader, General Jeb Stuart, embarked on a bold but ill-fated mission, sweeping around the Union forces in a maneuver that left Lee blind to the enemy's movements. By late June, Lee's army stretched deep into Pennsylvania, while critical intelligence slipped through his fingers. A sense of foreboding shadowed the Confederate advance. Act 2. Collision at Gettysburg on June 28th. Lee learned through a spy's report that Meade's Army of the Potomac was on the move, stationed at Frederick, Maryland. This unexpected development demanded swift action. Lee recalibrated his strategy, ordering his corps commanders, Generals A.P. Hill, James Longstreet, and Richard Ewell, to converge on the town of Gettysburg. The picturesque crossroads, nestled among rolling hills and farmland, would soon become a crucible of war. Early on June 29th, Meade began his northward advance, with General John Buford's 2 cavalry brigades scouting ahead of the Union Army. Meade's plan was to intercept Lee and force a battle before the Confederates could cross the Susquehanna River. On June 30th, Buford's cavalry engaged and repelled a Confederate brigade from Hill's corps that was approaching Gettysburg. Recognizing the town's strategic significance as a crossroads, Buford prepared to hold it until Union reinforcements could arrive. Act 3. The First Day's Battle, July 1st. The dawn of July 1st saw Buford's cavalry, equipped with newly issued Spencer repeating carbines, delaying General Henry Haight's Confederate division as it advanced toward Gettysburg. By 11 a.m., Union reinforcements from General John F. Reynolds's I Corps began arriving. A fierce counterattack drove back Haight's leading brigades at great cost. Reynolds, however, was mortally wounded in the engagement, becoming the highest-ranking officer to die at Gettysburg and one of the most senior commanders killed during the war. By 1 p.m., all 3 divisions of the I Corps were deployed along Seminary Ridge, and 2 divisions of General Oliver O. Howard's 11th Corps had arrived to defend the northern approaches to the town. A 3rd division of the 11th Corps took position on Cemetery Hill. General Howard assumed command of the battlefield around noon, directing his 11th Corps to General Carl Schurz and overall command to General Abner Doubleday. The Union forces resisted on both fronts until 2:30 p.m., but an attack by General Jubal Early's Confederate division overwhelmed the 11th Corps' northeastern flank, leading to their collapse. The 11th Corps' retreat exposed the flank of the I Corps, forcing both corps to withdraw. Before the defenders could rally on Cemetery Hill, the Union forces had suffered over 50% casualties. Despite his advantage in numbers, Lee hesitated to launch a full-scale engagement without the arrival of Longstreet's corps. At 4 p.m., General Winfield Scott Hancock arrived to assess the situation for Meade. After surveying the battlefield, Hancock concluded that Gettysburg was the place to fight. He ordered the occupation of Culp's Hill and reported his findings to Meade, who had independently reached the same conclusion. Reinforcements from the 3 Corps under General Daniel Sickles and the 12th Corps under General Henry Slocum were already on their way. Lee directed General Ewell to attack Cemetery Hill if possible, but Ewell, cautious of the risk, refrained from pressing the assault. By nightfall, the battlefield was strewn with the toll of the first day's fighting, which had claimed some 15,500 casualties, killed, wounded, captured, or missing. The stage was set for an even bloodier confrontation in the days to come. Act 4. The second day, July 2nd. By dawn on July 2nd, Meade's troops had formed a defensive line stretching along Culp's Hill, Cemetery Hill, and Cemetery Ridge. Both Lee and Meade understood the strategic importance of the Federal right flank, as its collapse would jeopardize the Union's line of communication along the Baltimore Pike. Lee saw an opportunity, but disagreements among his commanders delayed decisive action. General Richard Ewell argued for a main attack on the opposite flank, while General James Longstreet believed Lee should force Meade to attack instead. Lee's orders, issued late at 11 a.m., tasked Longstreet with enveloping the Union's south flank and striking north along the Emmitsburg Pike, where Lee mistakenly believed Meade's main line lay. Ewell and General A.P. Hill were assigned secondary attacks to support Longstreet's assault. However, delays plagued the Confederate execution, and Longstreet's artillery only opened fire at 3 p.m. Rushing to reinforce the south flank, Meade discovered that General Daniel Sickles had advanced his 3 corps to higher ground at the Peach Orchard, deviating from Cemetery Ridge as ordered. This created a precarious salient, weakening the Union's position. At 4 p.m., General John Bell Hood's division of Longstreet's corps launched a ferocious attack on the Union left. Amid the chaos, General Gouverneur K. Warren, Meade's chief engineer, arrived at Little Round Top and found it undefended. Acting swiftly, Warren directed Union reinforcements to secure the hill just as 500 Alabama troops scaled Big Round Top and prepared to advance. The desperate defense of Little Round Top became a defining moment of the battle. While Warren's actions preserved the Union position, Sickles' salient at the Peach Orchard collapsed under the weight of Confederate assaults, resulting in devastating losses. Fierce fighting erupted across the battlefield, from Devil's Den to the Wheatfield and the Peach Orchard. Both Hood and Sickles suffered serious wounds in the carnage. The Confederate attacks, poorly coordinated, allowed Meade to shift reserves to threatened sectors of his line. Hill's offensive came too late to have a meaningful impact, and Ewell's assault, launched at 6 p.m., failed to achieve its objectives. Some Confederate troops reached Cemetery Hill, only to be repulsed, while others faltered on the slopes of Culp's Hill. By nightfall, the second day of battle had ended, leaving approximately 20,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. The horrors of July 2nd alone ranked it among the 10 bloodiest engagements of the Civil War. The fate of Gettysburg and the war still hung in the balance, as both sides braced for the climactic day to come. Act V. The third day in Pickett's charge, July 3rd. Despite General James Longstreet's protests, Lee was determined to launch another attack on July 3rd. Meade, however, convened a council of war the night before to decide whether to hold the line or withdraw. With the consensus to stay and fight, Meade prepared for the Confederate assault. The day began with a secondary attack by Ewell on Culp's Hill, but the Union defenders repelled it. Meanwhile, Lee orchestrated his grand strategy, a massive assault on the center of the Union line at Cemetery Ridge. 10 Confederate brigades, including fresh troops from General George Pickett's division, would spearhead the attack. Although history would dub this momentous charge Pickett's charge, the responsibility for its execution rested with Longstreet. At 1 p.m., a Confederate artillery barrage roared to life, aiming to weaken the Union defenses. The Federal artillery responded in kind, creating a deafening cacophony that shook the battlefield. At 3 p.m., the Confederate infantry emerged from the woods, advancing in parade-like formation across 1,400 yards of open ground. Union soldiers watched in tense silence as the wave of gray and butternut surged forward. When the Confederates came within effective range, Union artillery unleashed a devastating barrage, followed by musket fire from troops entrenched behind stone walls. The Southern advance, riddled with casualties, pressed on, even as their ranks faltered. A small group breached the Union line, reaching what would be remembered as the high tide of the Confederacy. But they were swiftly overwhelmed, their momentum crushed under relentless counterattacks. The Confederate retreat was chaotic, leaving behind bodies, prisoners, and battle flags. Union forces, battered from days of fighting, refrained from a full-scale counterattack. By the end of the day, Lee's army was broken, demoralized, and forced to withdraw. That night, as rain drenched the battlefield, Lee prepared his army to retreat south. The Army of Northern Virginia slipped away, crossing the Potomac River back into Virginia. The Battle of Gettysburg, a 3-day inferno of courage and carnage, had ended. The Union victory marked a turning point in the Civil War, but at an unthinkable cost: over 50,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. Gettysburg's fields bore silent witness to the sacrifices made and the enduring legacy of a nation tested by fire. Act 6: Significance, Legacy, and Casualties. After the war, Gettysburg was recognized as the turning point in the Civil War. Southern sentiment, however, often scapegoated Longstreet for losing the war due to perceived failures to cooperate with Lee on July 2nd and 3rd. Longstreet's tactical belief in defensive warfare clashed with Lee's offensive strategies, leading to long-standing controversies. Lee's biographer, Douglas Southall Freeman, defended Longstreet, asserting that his actions were errors of a good soldier rather than outright failures. Despite disagreements, Lee's overconfidence, Ewell's shortcomings, and faulty reconnaissance, including reliance on Stuart, also played pivotal roles in the Confederate defeat. Meade faced criticism for not aggressively pursuing Lee's retreating forces, but his victory was monumental. Only 5 days into his command, he had halted the Confederate invasion and secured Union soil. Coupled with General Ulysses S. Grant's victory at Vicksburg, the twin triumphs sealed the Confederacy's fate. The battle's casualties were staggering. Of approximately 94,000 Northern troops, about 23,000 were killed. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you love exploring the past as much as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Together, let's keep the love for history alive. See you in the next chapter.